Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me all over the place that you get your content: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And later today, I'll be back at the VMAC talking to Sam Darnold and Clint Kubiak and Adam Dirty and the whole crew as they get ready for what is going to be a titanic matchup between the Rams and the Seahawks. And today's a special day. It's not just because it's Thursday. It's not just because it's raining here in Seattle, as it always does. It's because we get to welcome, I think, the preeminent voice of the NFL right now, Brian Baldinger, Baldy, to the show for the first time. Man, welcome to the show, and how are you doing?
Thanks, Brian. No, I'm doing great. I mean, honestly, I'm as excited for this game, as any Seahawk fan or Ram fan is. I mean, we get a collision course of, a game that is for first place. It's for playoff seeding. It's for bragging rights. It's everything. And I've done enough games in SoFi Stadium to know that this is going to be largely a Seahawk crowd, So we've seen enough of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was talking to you before we got on that you and I ran into each other at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, and I feel like a lot of what's going on right now for the Seahawks started all the way back then when Mike Macdonald was down there with John Schneider on the field watching Gray Zabel. And I know you saw that performance. And now here we are, all these months later, him starting for the Seahawks.
It's interesting because I was watching Gray last week. He was going up against Walter Nolan. And, we saw that matchup in Mobile. I don't know how many times they went against. He went against everybody, and it was a great, as we know, it was a great defensive line class. And I saw John down there, and there was there was like every single coach. John Lynch was there, and you saw Pittsburgh was there. I mean, they were all there, and they all saw it. And Zabel, he lined up at center, he lined up at guard. He just wanted reps, and you couldn't help but notice just how competitive he was. That was one thing. But then his overall balance and play strength was really evident. And it was evident in the game last week. And it's been evident all year long. It's not often that you pick a guard that high in the first round. Doesn't happen often. But it was a great pick for them.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it when I saw, a lot of the teams have their suites that they're up in the stadium, like watching from up high, and they come down, John and Mike Macdonald come down in the field for the offensive line drill, and everywhere the offensive line players went, John and Mike just kind of followed. There was no secret about where the Seahawks needed to change things, and you obviously are an expert on line play and haven't played in the league. What have you seen John Benton and Clint Kubiak, Rick Dennison, Justin Outen do with, honestly, an offensive line that's been the butt of jokes for the last decade, and then now, by most measures, is one of the better offensive lines in the NFL?
Well, the big thing is you see guys improve. I mean, whether it's Big Abe or Cross, I mean, the guys have improved up front. Right guard is playing the best he's ever played. He's always had great size. But, he's playing really good football right now. That's a good defensive front. And they washed them up last week. I mean, they really won the line of scrimmage. And that was the single biggest issue over the last 2 years. Even if they won 10 games last year, the offensive line was not a strength. And so I think some of it is, play design. I mean, when this thing is working the way it has been working, it looks like a symphony. Your outside zone stretch and all the things that you want to do there, and the play action passes off it where the quarterback has all kinds of time and room to be able to, find receivers. Clint Kubiak has done this before. It happened for only 2 weeks last year in New Orleans, and then they lost their center and injuries, and, it just kind of snowballed from there. But I remember distinctly talking to Troy Aikman after the first 2 weeks when they were scoring 40 a game. And he was like, we were just talking about just Clint, the designer and the play caller, and we thought he was elite, and then, didn't go much further than that. They lost McCoo, their center, and, it collapsed. But they hired the right guy up in Seattle. And, this thing has been going on since Mike Shanahan's days in Denver. It's produced a lot of great offenses, and it's doing it right now.
Well, there's a lot of Seahawks fans that were, they didn't know necessarily if Clint Kubiak was going to work out. They didn't know if Sam Darnold was going to work out. They didn't know if a lot of this stuff was going to work out. And you look at Mike Macdonald when he started in Baltimore as DC. It took half a season for them to kind of get things going. And in Seattle last year, it took about half a season to get things going. This year, I was like, oh, well, maybe it'll take Clint Kubiak half a season to get things going. But the offense, the passing game has been electric from the get, at least from week 2, I would say. But it's the run game that has taken a little bit longer. And I'm curious from your perspective, is that normal to kind of does the run game and the coordination and run blocking for a new line and a new scheme take a little bit longer to get set up?
When I use the word symphony, I mean, I'm not like just throwing like all kinds of silly words out there. Like there's a dance that has to take place with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. There's a dance that has to take place between their position and the line. Some days you can't get to the Mike linebacker. Some days they got a safety walking up and he's unaccounted for. And it takes a while to figure out. And some days it's game. You can walk through this stuff all you want on Wednesdays and talk about it and walk through it and, practice it on Thursday and Friday, whatever. But game days can be really different. And I just go back to my days, like how are we going to get this? Because, like there's been certain players in this league, Fred Warner in San Francisco. You don't get Fred blocked, he's largely going to make the tackle every play. So how are you going to get to him? And some of that, I'm just using examples, but that's the run game. It doesn't always just click. And there are days where you're going to be off and they're going to win. It happened against the Eagles on Monday night against Green Bay. Evan Williams had no answer for him. And there he is, and he's unaccounted for. He's unblocked, and he's coming out of the sky, out of the deep path. And so those are some of the things that can take place as you're trying to figure out how we're going to get this thing going. But along the way, you start building your core runs that you're going to put on every play sheet against every team, against the Rams this week, whatever game it is, you're going to start building your core plays that you're going to perfect against any defense and any look.
You mentioned the right side of the line and Abe Lucas and Anthony Bradford and also like people know Charles Cross a little bit better, obviously a top 10 pick, Ray Zabel, first round pick. And so there's a little bit more notoriety there. The first time that the Seahawks went against the Cardinals this year, Anthony Bradford did not have a particularly good game. He had a lot of low moments. This last game, you came out with a breakdown about him and Abe Lucas and what they were doing on the right side. What are you seeing from those guys?
Well, the one thing he can, Anthony is obviously a big guy, and big guys don't generally change direction very well. So you can, he can get off balance easily. But I feel like he's playing on balance a whole lot better right now, at least, the last couple of weeks, playing much better on balance because he's got power. But sometimes these guys, they just kind of shoot their, they just fire out and they lose their balance and, they don't stay attached to the defender. And, they fall down and, it looks bad. And he can have those moments. But I feel like he's playing under control, trusting that his power is going to be there. You don't just have to fire your gun every play. Sometimes you just have to keep your feet underneath you and just keep driving. And I thought, going against Nolan, going against Calais, going against some of those guys up front, Dalvin Tomlinson, is a good player. But I saw him knock him off his feet. That guy is a big, strong guy at the point of attack. And I saw him on one leg a couple of times. And so I feel like his balance is better. And it's a problem for big guys, being able to control that. Because once they get going, they're starting to lean too much, whatever, they can end up on the ground. And I always think that the great offensive linemen in this league just aren't on the ground. There are times in short yardage and you're cutting somebody in the backside. But by and large, good offensive linemen aren't on the ground during a game.
Well, we're talking to Brian Baldinger of the NFL, and there's a lot of folks that Seahawks fans, analysts that were like, you got to replace Anthony Bradford. He is the weak spot on this line. And there's this other aspect of there's not a lot of great guard play going on in the NFL. It's not easy to just go and find someone to plug and play. And it takes a little time to develop. He's still 24 years old. what's your kind of perspective on, in today's NFL where you don't have the padded practices, how patient do you have to be before you just kind of pull the ripcord with a player?
Well, a couple things, and you said it right off the bat. Like, first of all, there's not many guys in this business that have that kind of power. I mean, most guys coming out of college right now, the way college games are, outside of a few teams in SEC, maybe in the Big Ten, most guys are better pass blockers than run blockers. It's just the way it is. They don't spend a lot. They don't run combo blocks, and they're not pulling. Like, you just watch these college games. You're not practicing these skills. But, like, to have a guy in there at that size that has that power, that can get movement at the point of attack, it's not easily found. And so then so you go, okay, he's got that skill, and he does. Then you go, okay, how mentally sharp is he? Line stems late, okay? Like, are we on point with our assignments? Is he blowing assignments? Because that's what you really have intolerance for, is blown assignments. And I don't know, because I don't know the play call. I know Olu went in there at center during the game last week. I know how smart Olu is, just being around that kid. Like, he's sharp, really sharp. So, I didn't see any drop off last week, which is good. And I know Olu's undersized, and he's had his issues too, and it looks like they've upgraded. However, those two things, power, like real size, real power, and then, because I always think, like, if your ass is 4 feet wide, like it is, and you put 5 of those guys together, you got a pocket of at least 20 feet, to Sam to go to work in. So get a wide ass that can move people. And then if he's mentally sharp, he can think on his feet, whether it's blitzes, A-gap pressures, all these things that take place every Sunday that the Rams will do to him on Sunday. Can he think through that? Can he react properly? And so I feel like he's in there because he can do those things.
I'm going to tell my wife that when I was down in that smash burger last night, I'm trying to get a 4-foot wide ass to protect Sam Darnold in the pocket, see if she'll buy it. So you mentioned Olu Oluwatimi, and I think it's important to touch on that, since Jalen Sundell is going to be out for a little bit and Olu's going to start in this game. I talked to Olu yesterday, and he did say it took him about 6 snaps to kind of get back into the flow. What did you see from him in this game?
Well, first of all, if you talk to Olu this week, tell him I said hello.
I will.
We have a fraternity back in Morristown, New Jersey, at Lane Johnson's house, and Olu was there, and we have guys, John Runyon, guys from around the league who train there. And so I met Olu coming out of Michigan, old offensive line coach in Philly, was coaching him at Michigan. So, we got to know each other a little bit. Runyon's a Michigan guy. All these guys went. So just tell him hello. But look, the guy is smart. He plays with leverage. He has to, because, Cesar Ruiz is a buddy of his. He's part of the barn. He has to play the same way. There's a certain way Olu has to play. If he starts playing high, he's going to get stuffed. He's going to get walked back. He's got to get his hands on guys. He's got to play a certain way to be successful. And he knows that. He knows the level of limitations that but he can play with leverage. He's super smart. He's not going to blow an assignment. Everybody's going to know the protection. All that stuff is going to get communicated because he's sharp like that.
So when you look at this Seahawks offensive line, I mean, I'm focusing on the trenches with you because I think that is going to decide this game, like it decides so many football games. And then you go look at the Rams, and it's not the biggest front, but they are athletic and twitchy, and they come in waves. So where do you see advantages for Seattle, and where do you see advantages for the Rams?
Well, you're talking about the Rams defensive line?
Yeah.
I mean, look, they've drafted 2 defensive linemen in each of the last 3 years since Aaron Donald departed. And so, there's Kobe Turner and Byron Young and Jared Verse and, Braden Fisk and, Stewart. Like, they just keep drafting these guys. Mm-hmm. And then you add Poona Ford, and you add the other complementary players, and all of a sudden you're 8 deep. Jared Verse goes out for a series. There doesn't seem to be any. Josiah Stewart comes in. There's no drop off. And so you're going to see they're going to wave them through. They all understand how to defeat blocks. They all have skills to rush the passer. If there's a weakness, up front, or you make a mistake, they make you pay. They don't really blitz a lot. They don't need to. And so it's kind of like, can you handle their front? And the middle linebacker, Nate Landman, is to me, he's their MVP. Like he's punching the ball out, like he's sacking the quarterback, like he leads the team in tackles by a mile. Like you got to block 53, in the run game. I mean, he's a really good player. He's just one of these guys that knows the formation, knows the play, and he seems to get a head start on it. So, I mean, they're not a very complicated defense, to be honest with you. It's not like Seattle where they play all these different fronts, these matchup zones, and where is Emmanwori at? Like there's not a lot of indecision. They just think that they can line up and play and beat you, and so that's kind of how they do it.
One thing I noticed looking at that team is they're excellent at defending runs outside the tackles, but they're a little bit vulnerable running up the middle, and they do tend to play more dime than almost any defense out there. And I think Quentin Lake is a name that deserves a lot of attention. That guy's been playing fantastic football for them this year. Jalen McCullough is another guy that's been a good player for them that I don't think people talk about as much. But how do you, I talked to Mike Macdonald about this yesterday. How do you play dime defense and still defend the run well?
Well, you don't play dime defense to defend the run. You play dime defense to defend the pass. And so, honestly, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. You're seeing less and less of it. Because, against the Rams, you're going to see 3 tight ends. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for Quentin to be in, for like the Seattle doesn't play that, but they play 3 tight ends for a reason. They want to secure the edges, and they want Davis Allen to lead up on linebackers like they do. Like to your point about they're a little bit vulnerable, up the middle. Like it made no sense the other day when San Francisco on 4th and 1 ran McCaffrey out wide, and Byron Young beat the tight end and tackled him for loss. And it was a huge play in the game. Got the ball back. It was like a turnover, And you think, okay, you got, just get juice in an I formation and go right at him. So it kind of like caught me off guard because I didn't think they played smart in that game. But the dime linebacker thing, like it was a wave. A lot of teams had it. The Eagles played it when they won their first Super Bowl. They played a lot of dime, and Malcolm Jenkins was their dime linebacker, and they were really good at it. But the teams have changed. We're seeing teams run the ball more than they throw it now around the league. We're seeing a bigger emphasis on the run. We're seeing more tight ends on the field than we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of chasing teams out of that look right now. Dallas played that. They got destroyed in the playoffs. Quentin Bell was playing a dime linebacker in Green Bay, ran for 200 yards. So I feel like that might be a particular personnel grouping that we're going to see less and less of going forward.
Well, let's flip sides because you brought up the Rams and the new thing. Everyone's getting excited about Sean McVay using 3 tight ends. Puka Nacua got hurt. He kind of fell into this new personnel grouping, and they use it a bunch. Like it's almost
more than anybody else in the league.
40+%. The Seahawks use heavy personnel. What is 21 or 12, 40+% as well. But 3 tight ends is a little unique. Mike Macdonald was kind of commenting yesterday. They haven't really had to pass out of that formation as much. I guess they're about 66% run in 3 tight ends, but I've seen them complete plenty of passes there as well. What do you see that makes that 3 tight end formation unique for the Rams?
They caught, first of all 4 tight ends. Okay, we're talking about Higbee and Parkinson's, who you know really well. And the rookie Terrence Ferguson and Davis Allen. Okay, there's 4 of them. They've all caught touchdown passes. In totality, they've got 7 touchdown catches from their tight end position. And they caught 2 last week. They actually had a formation last week where they caught a touchdown pass to Davis Allen, and they were in a bunch of 3 tight ends. So now, it popped a few runs for Blake Corum and Kyron Williams last week. So they're not afraid to throw it. And they got this Ferguson, doesn't have a lot of catches, had an important catch last week. He's a great route runner. You could see how this guy has a future. They were super excited. You probably know him being in Seattle. You're coming out of Oregon. But I think they're super excited about his size. And he got one-on-one with the linebacker on the outside, and he destroyed him. And Stafford didn't miss. So I feel like part of it is the injuries to both to Nacua, along with, and we'll see what happens to Davante this week. But part of it is okay, the receivers have gone down. We got to come up with different ways. Sometimes that you discover things in those new formations. But I also know that if you don't protect Stafford and you let him do what he did last week in San Francisco, he's gonna put a lot of touchdowns up on the board. And so you got to get to him, and so you got to blitz him because you got to get there fast because he reads things quickly. And so it'll be interesting, that chess match between, what Mike wants to do and how the Rams are going to protect Stafford this game.
Well, it's great that you bring that up because, there's this little secret. It's a dirty little secret about the Rams that the pass protection actually has not been that great, especially the tackles. Havenstein and Alaric Jackson, they both almost given up as many pressures so far this year as they gave up all of last season. But Stafford gets rid of the ball quickly and reads things quickly, so I don't think it's come up as much. With this Seahawks defense, this front, with by the way, I did talk to Leonard Williams about you yesterday. I was trying to get him to give me some kind of spearfishing tip I could ask you about and surprise you, but he couldn't come up with anything. So when you look at the Seahawks front, you look at Mike Macdonald. What do you see as a path to where the Seahawks could maybe disrupt Matt Stafford?
Well, I mean, the success they had last week of beating, running backs and pass coverage, Kyren Williams has been really good. Blake Corum is not a big guy. He's 5'8". Like, I would think that Emmanwori against Blake Corum, would be a mismatch, if he's blitzing. Tyrese, obviously, with the two, quarterback sacks last week and, their inability to Demarcari to be able to block them. I would think that they would test that initially. Now, I happen to think that Kyren is a really good pass protector, but everybody is vulnerable depending on where they come from and how you overload it and all that kind of stuff. So, but regardless, I mean, I don't know if anybody's playing better inside than Big Cat. But Byron has certainly come on, and Jaron is real, and Nwosu and Tank. I mean, they've got a lot of different guys. Boye, they got a lot of guys that can get to the quarterback. And so, and then it's a question of, do you want to get there in a normal rush? Do you want to get there and heat up Stafford? And what are we doing behind it? Because the route running and the ability to go get the ball on timing in the way that Stafford throws it to spots, will he do that against a team that plays this over-the-top matchup zone where they see the flight of the ball? Like, will Stafford be as aggressive with some of the throws that he normally is against this defense opposed to some man coverages where he trusts his receivers to go win?
Yeah, it's cool you bring that. I was looking at this as well. Wouldn't have thought this, but Davante Adams has been just an assassin against man coverage all year. But he has
touchdown last week, destroyed the safety.
Unreal. Yeah. But if he's not played as well against zone this year, and I don't know why. I'm curious. I mean, not to put you on the spot, do you have any ideas of why Davante?
Well, I talked to Davante week 4. They're playing the Rams, and I was down the field talking to him. He's got $1 million. He's got a release for anybody that's covering. You want to take inside away from him, he's still going to get inside. This is the release. You want to play, press man to get your hands on him, here's his release. He's got a release for whatever you're doing. But what I did ask him about is how he built such an almost instantaneous relationship the way Cooper Kupp had or Nakua had in such a short period of time, knowing that Stafford really didn't do anything in preseason. And so he said, they talked through a lot of different things. And so I'm just wondering if just the newness and no real training camp to work with, if that has something to do with it. I'd be interested if somebody asked Davante that question, if that's the direction he would go.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good theory. I mean, I was Cooper Kupp. I talked to him yesterday about man versus zone and knowing how to down throttle certain to tempo it, and there is a lot more nuance to kind of getting in sync against zone coverage. So when you kind of look at these two teams and you just sit back and you throw it all aside, what stands out to you is what's going to be the thing that decides who wins this game?
Well, I mean, both quarterbacks can turn the ball over. We saw Sam last week. I mean, it was. Some of those things that have plagued him in the past showed up last week. Mm-hmm. When he gets outside the pocket, it's clean. He doesn't make mistakes. But when the pocket gets dirty, quickly, he rushes things, and he lost a fumble last week. But Stafford's guilty of doing those kind of things too. That's just a quarterback position. Like, you get under pressure and you're trying to wait on a receiver, or you wait for this and you wait too long, and you can force these guys into turnovers. It has happened in the past. Now, Matt isn't doing it very much right now, but he's been plagued by that in the past. I think, this is, to me, it has all the markings of a fourth quarter game. And who can put together the drive, who can make the play. They both have lost 2 games by basically 3 points in each game. They've been close losses, San Francisco for you and Tampa. I mean, close losses, whatever. So I feel like that's the direction this thing is going to go. Who's going to open it up? Is Jackson Smith and Jigba going to go deep? Like, if I was, if I'm Clint right here, I'm like, I don't believe in these corners. And with the Rams, I mean, Emmanuel Forbes has struggled in the past. Like, I can't wait to take my shots against him. Like, I feel like that's the one area that I'd be concerned about if I'm the Rams defense, is holding up against elite receivers and elite route runners with the guys I have out there. I've seen the Eagles just attack Emmanuel Forbes and just destroy him with A.J. Brown. So, like, I feel like that's an area that maybe Seattle can exploit, but you got to be able to hold up front to be able to get, the ball down the field like that.
There are so many storylines in this one, and this is one of the last things I'll ask you and let you get on with your day. But I'm curious: Mike Macdonald, Sam Darnold, Ernest Jones, Cooper Kupp. Who benefits the most as an individual? I know it's a team sport, but who's going to benefit the most if the Seahawks are able to win this game in terms of their reputation, their respect, kind of the narrative? And people poo-poo this, and I get it, but as well as I do, these things that take on a life of their own. They affect contracts, they affect jobs, they affect Pro Bowls and other awards that obviously affect contracts and jobs as well. Just kind of curious, which of those guys do you think would get the biggest boost if the Seahawks win this game?
I probably lean towards Sam, just because of how his career started in New York and Carolina, kind of rehabilitated himself in San Francisco, played unbelievable in Minnesota to the final 2 games. Nobody wants to talk about how bad the offensive line was in front of them. The Rams playoff loss, or Detroit loss, and it's the reason why they went out and drafted a guard in the first round and, got their all-pro left tackle back, on and on and on. I think Sam does, because we're talking about these reclamation quarterbacks in this league, and it's real, whether it's Daniel Jones or, whether it's, down in Tampa with what's going on right there with Baker. I mean, this is a storyline, with these reclamation quarterbacks. And it goes to show you that none of these guys can do it by themselves. And it's ridiculous to ask guys to do it. It's an organization failure when some of these guys that are now succeeding had failed in these other spots. And so I feel like John really understands. Like, when he said goodbye to Geno, when he said goodbye to Russell, like, he's always looking to upgrade that position. And it's a credit, because some of these guys have had a lot of success, in Seattle. But he was looking to upgrade the position. And I feel like they have. The one benefit of Sam there is, maybe you think different, Brad, but honestly, I didn't think Jackson Smith and Jigba was a true number 1 receiver. I thought he was a slot guy coming out of Ohio State. He's now as dangerous as anybody in this business. He's a router. He's got incredible hands. Like, he wants the action. Game's on the line. He wants the ball. Like, all the things that you want from a number 1. It's an upgrade over DK, to be honest with you. His ability to do all these things. And so it's bold. It's bold, but it's also a function of the quarterback. And if they go up, they go down to Los Angeles to win the game, I think Sam, to your question, probably has to play great in order that to happen.
I'll give you a little something to take with you. I don't think anyone else knows this, but based off of game speed, JSN is actually running as fast as Rashid Shaheed this season. He's running the 4.3s based off of the times he's putting on during the game, which is not something I don't think anybody expected out of JSN.
Well, that opening touchdown last week, I mean, the corner was in good position. It's it's Rashid and, it's Jackson, on a little speedo route combination that everybody runs, just a post dig. And, he ran right by Arizona.
Last thing I'll say before we let you go is I just want to express gratitude. I know from talking to a lot of other people, there's a lot of voices out there about football. I mean, everybody's got a show or podcast or talking about the breaking down film. You have a voice that stands alone because not only do you have the experience, but you're humble. You're not trying to do something. You just love the game, and it comes through so clearly in the work that you do. And from the very first time you started doing Baldy's breakdowns, it's been a gift to everybody that loves football. And so from me and everyone else that gets to benefit from it, really wanted to thank you for the work that you do.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was at the Quarterback Collective this year out in Los Angeles, and John Schneider was there, and he's friends with Richmond Flowers, who started the whole thing. And I talked to John a little bit, and he's got respect for what I do, which is important. But the players do, and it's just wild to me that players could make the kind of money that some of these guys are making, but they want like my sort of green light from how they played. They want people to know.
Validation.
They want the validation, and it has nothing to do with money or contracts or status or Pro Bowl or All Pro. They want the recognition, and it blows me away. But I don't take it lightly, and I'm not doing it for clicks or anything like you said. I respect the game. It's my way of giving back to the game, and I want to see the game flourish. And we have a league right now of have and have-nots. I have some ideas about how these teams, the Giants, New Orleans, some of these teams got to fix things, but Seattle's in good shape right now. So John's done a fantastic job, and there's a lot of guys in that team. This Nick Emmanwori, he looks to me like he's Kyle Hamilton with more speed. And I just know, I think they wanted Witherspoon to kind of play that role at first, but then they found the real thing. And so now Spoon can play outside and do his thing. But this guy, it might be this weekend against these tight ends. He's going to blow up this year because of his abilities.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for coming on. Have a great rest of your day. Brian Baldinger of the NFL, Baldy NFL is where you can find him. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you got it, bro. Anytime. Thank you.
All right. That is Brian Baldinger. I mean, that doesn't get any better. And I mean it. I'm so grateful for John Madden was this unique voice that I honestly took for granted. I loved listening to Madden call games, but he was so at ease with he loved the game. He loved people. He had a personality. He didn't try. He was just who he was. And there's so many guys now out there that are trying to kind of put themselves before the work or trying to fit some kind of personality, scream at the mic, have a hot take. Brian Baldinger just loves football. And it comes through when he does his breakdowns. He highlights guys that nobody else highlights. He's not doing it because an agent told him to, or because some team told him to. He's just watching these games and he's seeing wow, that guy just knocked someone on his ass. And you all know Anthony Bradford's a guy that I've been preaching some patience with all year. And so it did put a smile on my face when, after this game against the Cardinals, it was the right side of that line between Abe Lucas and Anthony Bradford that Brian shined a light on. And it's, I was talking to Anthony yesterday. It matters to him. It matters to him that there are people seeing it. He's feeling more confident in the way he's playing. That doesn't mean he's going to be flawless the rest of the year. He's a guy that is going to get out over his feet. He is going to get off balance and pass protection at times. It just happens. That is going to continue to happen. But the fact that he's shown this for 2 straight games, I think, is a real indicator that there is upside there. There's something to work with. And this is going to be a game against the Rams where if something bad's going to show up in that regard, this would be the game, because Jared Verse, Josiah Stewart, Brian Young, Byron Young, that would be right. Byron Young, Braden Fisk, even all those guys, Kobe Turner, there's a lot of quick twitch pass rushers, which specialize in getting people off balance. And that's going to be as hard of a matchup as Anthony Bradford's going to see the rest of the year. So yeah, he could be the reason they lose this game. He absolutely could be. He also could be the reason why they are able to run for 150 plus yards and transform the way this offense is able to perform. So I'm personally invested in stories like that, because when everybody decides that you're trash, it's easy to roll up shop and give up. It's easy to just let that become the reality. When you fight that, when you come back against it, that's something special. And I respect people that do that. So cool to see there, same way that it was cool to see, Abe Lucas, a guy that a lot of Seahawks fans had given up hope on, come back and be a absolute rock for them on the right side of the line. And look, the right side of the line has the potential to be every bit as good as the left side of the line. Different skill sets, different abilities, but especially in run blocking, those guys have some special ability on that side. And if they can start figuring that out, watch out. Another name that I think showed up a little bit is Nick Kallerup, the tight end, who I've been enamored with since rookie minicamp. I didn't know who he was. It's not a guy I was paying attention to in pre-draft prep. And I see 89, which for me is Doug Baldwin always. And I see 89, and it's this massive guy out in the field. I'm like, who is that? And I look him up, an undrafted free agent out of Minnesota. I'm like, okay. And he's like 6'5", 265. And, rookies are usually guys that need to get in the weight room and kind of get their man strength, their NFL strength over the first year or two. This guy looked bigger than any of the tight ends the Seahawks already had. And then to look up that he was the best run blocking tight end in college football last year. And for him to get a chance with Eric Saubert down on IR for a bit, and for him to be moving guys, it's not a surprise. I think what was a surprise was that the Seahawks chose to spend a 53-man roster spot on him. I did not see that coming at all. I thought, like, they've got AJ Barner, Eric Saubert, Elijah Arroyo, and Brady Russell can play tight end, and Robbie Oots in a pinch could play tight end, right? He played it in college. There's no way they're going to keep Nick Kallerup, who's just largely a blocking tight end. Well, they did. And if you look around the NFL, one of the things that's going on is that blocking tight ends have become, they're not a premium position. I'm not going to overstate it, but there's a dearth. There's a low supply of blocking tight ends. And Mike Macdonald's kind of talked about this, where some teams are having to go to tackle eligible, where they bring an offensive lineman in and they do the whole, like, I'm an eligible receiver, because they don't have a tight end that can set the edge, that can block the edge. And to have multiple of those guys on the Seahawks team, I think it showed some foresight from the Seahawks about how valuable and how rare it is to have guys like that. So I think Nick Kallerup's another guy that most people are not going to know. But if you go back to even, the 2005 Seahawks, the 2013 Seahawks, a lot of times it's these tight ends that most people don't remember that play pretty key roles in really good run games and really good teams. And I mean, Jeremy Stevens is not the guy I'm thinking about for the 2005 Seahawks. It's Ryan Hannum. Like, he was this undersized but really capable blocking tight end that was a big part of that run offense. And for the Seahawks of the LOB era, Zach Miller was a guy that probably is the least talked about Seahawk that was a really good player that was part of those teams. And I think having guys like that is pretty valuable in situations like this, or pretty much any situation. So got a lot more to cover. In about 20 minutes, we're going to welcome in Brett Kollmann of Bootleg Football for his first visit to HB Mornings. We've got a great show with, Brian Baldinger, how awesome was that? Brett Kollmann will be on. We've had EJ Snyder on before, the other half of Bootleg Football. So it's only fair that we bring on Brett Kollmann as well. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, now would be a great time to do it. 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts would be greatly appreciated. I am so grateful we got some new ratings over there, some new reviews. I have not read these, so I'm just going to pick one. Hopefully it's something I can read on air. This comes from Isaiah Ram. Says, greatest podcast ever. Well, that is high praise. There might be some argument over that. It says, this is the best Seahawks podcast ever. Brian is a great host. I've been listening to this pod for the past 7 years, and to see what it has become is amazing. Amazing insights, and always shows love to his viewers. 10 out of 10 content. Go Hawks. That is so nice. Randall, A808. Entertaining and educational. I've been a Seahawks fan since moving to Seattle 20 years ago, but I've learned more about the team and football in general in the past year of listening to this podcast than all those other years combined. Amazing guests, stats, and insights, all with great production quality. Great show. Guys, awesome. Thank you. That is amazing. That is puts a smile on my face. So thank you for that. Spotify, if you're there, 5-star reviews there are great as well. All right. So I've got some Mike Macdonald sound I'm going to play for you in a second. Before we do that, a couple other things I should remind. I meant to tell you guys, the link is in the description of the video, but we sold out the Nashville party, the VIP lounge that we're doing on Saturday night before the game. This is next week. We sold that out in like 36 hours. Yeah, 36 hours, a couple of days, 3 days. And the venue is like, well, we're going to figure out a way to allow more people to buy tickets. And they just released more tickets. So there's not a lot more tickets, but there are some. So if you wanted to go see, come with us, be able to, you get a free drink with your ticket. You also get a chance to get pictures with us if you want. You'll be there for a live episode of Real Hawk Talk. Evan Hill will be there. Dana O'Gorman, Derek, Josh Cashman, Jeff, like pretty much the whole crew will be there. So get them while they're available because they will not last. Also, great time to grab your favorite new Seahawks gear, whatever it is, at SimplySeattle.com using promo code HawkBlogger15. HawkBlogger15 will get you 15% off the best Seattle sports gear you're going to find. Grab it now while you can. HawkBlogger15 for a great deal. JKBoots.com/HawkBlogger. Enter that in your browser. That will give you your own special promo code. We are headed towards the time where gifts are being given. Black Friday is coming up. Go to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. Get a pair of boots for yourself or for a loved one. They will thank you. You will thank yourself. These are amazing boots, Washington-based company. And we've given a lot of money and a lot of free boots to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. Protects Northwest Forest firefighters while they protect the Northwest forests for us. So great company, great boots. jkboots.com/hawkblogger for a great deal. And then Sleeper. Grab the Sleeper app if you haven't already. It is a great app. Been with us all season and will be with us the rest of the way. And if you use promo code HAWKS, you will get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Getting a good deal on tickets, not easy. And so here's something you're going to want to pay attention to if you want a great deal on whether it's sports tickets or anything else. Hey, folks, there's never been a better time to go watch the Seahawks play, which is why I want to give the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. The NFL is in full swing, the NHL is back, and so is the NBA. One of the reasons I love SeatGeek is they've got your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red, not as good. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And it's not just about sports. Go see Rush, the Foo Fighters, Doechii, whoever you love. And of course, I've got a code for you guys. You can use code HawkBlogger10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code HawkBlogger10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Great deal from SeatGeek. Thanks. Take advantage. I did. Very, very fortunate. And I will put this QR code up for a little bit. That will give you a link to get tickets for Nashville, for Real Hawk Talk live in Nashville a week from Saturday. We'll be there. So you can use that QR code, or the link is in the description of the video. All right. So I talked to you about wanting to share some Mike Macdonald sound before we welcome in Brett Kollmann. We've been talking a lot about 3 tight ends. One of the questions I asked Mike Macdonald was about, I was kind of curious about whether 3 tight ends makes decoding pass protections any more difficult. And Mike Macdonald said, not really. That's not really where he'd go. But he did say this about the 3 tight end sets.
Well, I wouldn't say it's much as protection, but they've been able to really manipulate front structures and coverage structures with those guys out there. So it's a credit to their tight ends. Shout out to Huff, his tight end coach. They're doing a great job with those guys. They're all playing in multiple spots, which is not easy to do, when you have multiple guys on the field and they're executing at a high level. So, but they haven't had to pass it that much at a 13. So,
to that. Did you catch that last part? That little smile. Let's play that one more time.
Is on the field and they're executing at a high level. So, but they haven't had to pass it that much at a 13. So,
look at that little grin. If I know anything about Mike Macdonald, I think he's looking forward to them running 13 out there, 13 personnel. I think he's looking forward to seeing if they're actually able to run the football out of that formation, because that's what they do. I immediately went to check the run pass rate on 13 because I was like, I've seen them pass a lot out of that. What is he talking about? Well, 2/3 of the time they do run out of 13 personnel. And I'm interested what Mike's got in store. I don't know if that's a special plan he's got in place, or he just believes that his defensive front is going to blow up whoever they put in front of them. And that if they can force them to not be able to run out of 13, will that make Sean McVay less comfortable running that formation and kind of retreat to 11 personnel? Because if you can't block the run at a 13, then is it really that great of a formation for you? Because you're going to have not your best receivers on the field necessarily, and you're not going to get the advantage of being able to run the ball. So I don't know. It caught my attention. But it is interesting there. I got to take a screenshot of that face. I'm doing it right now because that is just, we'll make that an emoji for this show. I'll get that done a little bit later, but good stuff from Mike there on 13 personnel. The other thing that I thought was interesting from Mike, Mike Dugar of The Athletic asked him about what Greg Olsen had said, which is everyone's running these heavy personnels and people have been matching the personnel. Should they be matching the down and distance versus matching the personnel, which is an interesting thing. So just to give you an idea of what that could mean, it would mean like 1st and 10, I'm going to be playing the run, or 3rd and short, I'm going to be playing the run and have personnel in there, regardless of if they go 3 wide, I'm still going to be playing the run because I expect it to be a running play. That's kind of how that could be. Here's how Mike Macdonald answered that question.
Yeah, so sometimes I agree with him to a certain extent, to a large extent, I would say. There's always nuance to these things, and I'm sure, Greg knows that. It's just, sometimes there's opportunities to overmatch Sometimes there's opportunities to undermatch. Sometimes you want to just match because you feel like that's the best thing for you for that particular situation. I don't know. It's kind of like a bigger, longer discussion for, where you could sit down and really go over it. But I think there's kind of a time and a place for everything. The driving force to me is just what gives you the best chance in that scenario to be able to defend and attack what they do with that given people on the field in that given situation. So sometimes that is going lighter and feeling like you can be able to hold it up against the run. Sometimes you feel like you can go heavier and take your chances against the pass if that's indeed how they operate. So I don't know. Those are the things you're thinking about.
Great answer from Mike Macdonald. And the thing that then comes to mind is Nicky Emmanwori, right? Like, and what he provides as kind of this chess piece that really you don't have to say I'm going small or I'm going big. He's a little bit of all of those things. And so here is Mike Macdonald yesterday talking about just developing Nicky Emmanwori and all the things he can do for you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we're trying to develop him more as a like a in-box run defender, where I think he can make some decisions a little bit quicker. But when he's playing his best ball, he's really heavy-handed. He's a tough guy to move, and he can also play great in space. So he gives you that flexibility to possibly. I mean, you guys know we stick with he's on the field a lot since he's been healthy, and it's been an asset for us. And those are decisions we have to make every week on how we want to deploy him.
Do you remember when you guys first came up with?
So I'm going to play this as well. I didn't plan on it, but this is when the question is about the barnyard, the tush push with AJ Barner when it first came up. This coming from Bob Condotta. Watch this if you haven't seen it already.
Use that AJ Barner as in kind of that tush push.
Watch Mike's face.
How that all kind of evolved.
Do I remember how it started?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was it just a day of practice in May or something like that, or did you?
I don't ask for much, but that was something I asked for from our offense.
Specifically with AJ?
Yes.
Why?
He's big.
I think, man, are we lucky to have Mike Macdonald? I think we're pretty lucky to have Mike Macdonald, and not just because I enjoy who he is and how he leads and the vision he's got for the team. I think all those things, but the fact that he also he's been pretty cautious about asking for things from the offense. He kind of stays on the defensive side. He has an idea of the general idea of what he wants from an offense. But the fact that I didn't know that until yesterday, that he was the genesis of AJ Barner doing the tush push. And it actually answers a little bit of some questions, because I asked early on, why don't they just do that on every short yardage? And Mike Macdonald, I think initially he said, well, not every play is if it's over a yard, we feel like we can do it. I think he's covering for Clint Kubiak. If it wasn't Clint Kubiak's idea to begin with, he's probably been a little reticent to deploy that play. And since the bye week, it's kind of been okay, no, we're going to do that for our short yardage play. And they're 6 for 6 when doing it. Yes, they've had 2 false start penalties. That's not great. I actually talked to AJ about that yesterday. I've been confused about why they're even trying to beat the defense on the snap. The whole point of the play is you can be ready and we still are going to do it and still going to get the yardage we need. So AJ said there's been some times that they see the defense isn't set and they feel like there's going to be an advantage. But they've got to get that squared away. But in any event, I think it's pretty cool that Mike Macdonald put his thumb on the scale, so to speak, to get that play in there. That's what the head coach is supposed to be able to do. And that one play, the fact that that's been added, could be a big reason why the Seahawks go farther this year than they might have otherwise. So love that from the coach. We'll be welcoming Britt Kollmann of Bootleg Football here any minute. And let me get a super chat while we wait. Smokehawk. Hey, Smokehawk. Good to hear from you, man. Says, I believe this game will be won in the trenches. Hawks will run for 200 plus yards and win by 10 plus points. Special teams will score at least once. Go Hawks. Well, from your mouth to the football god's ears, that would be amazing. Draco88 says, "Hey, Brian, I haven't been watching the pod this week because I'm so nervous. Thinking this week. Nervous to think. I don't know what that last part means, but I get that you're nervous. There are a lot of people that are nervous. I'm not nervous. I'll probably get a little nervous. It's going to be very hard to be in the press box for this game. Like, this is going to be the best game, the most intense game I'm going to be in the press box for. I'm going to have to wear probably multiple layers because I'm going to sweat through them trying to keep my mouth shut. But man, it is it's going to be special. It's my first time in SoFi, so looking forward to seeing that and seeing this game. All right. Richie Brash says, "This game feels like Monday Night Football versus the Saints in 2012. I think it's our real coming out party. Defensive line going to make life hell for Stafford. Hawks win 34-17. Well, that would be nice, Richie. I don't know if I'm ready to predict a win of that caliber, but this guy I'm going to bring on next, if there's anyone that's going to know, he probably actually already knows the exact score of this game. He'll tell us exactly how many yards everyone's going to have, because if you're not already paying attention to Brett Kollmann, EJ Snyder, and Bootleg Football, what's wrong with you? Let me bring him on for the first time. The other half, maybe the better half. I'll have to talk to EJ how he feels about that intro of Bootleg Football. Brett Kollmann, man, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I'm glad we could finally make this work. This has got to be a crazy time of year for you, covering all the different aspects, doing stuff for the NFL. Tell folks that don't know, like, how you got into what you're doing, the Brett Kollmann story.
Oh man, so a long time ago, I worked at NFL Media, and I was on the production side as a PA, and I was, I don't know, 20 something at the time, and I was there for a long time, 6 or 7 years, and when I started making videos, I would go into Charlie Uke's office, and Charlie's still there to this day, and I would pitch him segments, and I would use my YouTube videos essentially as like proof of concept. I had no intention of being the guy that was presenting it. It was like, it would be cool if LaDainian did something like this, or Willie McGinnis, or Warren, or Dion was still there at the time, or Kurt, or insert Hall of Famer here. I was like, they're the Hall of Famers, let them do it, right? But so I was using these videos as proof of concept. This was 2014, 2015, and in classic 22-year-old fashion, I didn't understand the business yet. I didn't really get that this stuff wouldn't work on TV. It's just not really formatted for TV. And so Charlie, as gently as possible, would tell me, it's like, this is internet stuff. This is not TV stuff. I respect the work ethic, though, kid. Good job. But the videos took off because they were better tailored for YouTube than for TV. And eventually my wife, well, now wife, then girlfriend, she said, you're not even trying and they're succeeding. What happens if you actually try and do this full time? And like, we weren't married yet and we didn't have kids. So she's like, if you're going to fail, this is the best possible time to fail. So my last day at NFL, after being there for a long time, was the day before the 28-3 game, the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl. I wanted to stay through the year because I was on Red Zone, I was on Game Day Morning, I was doing shows that I love to do. So I'm going to stick it out through the season, and then I'm going to leave. And it worked. It worked, right? I when I kind of jumped out of the nest and was doing it full time, I didn't make a single dollar for over a year. But eventually, my wife supported us through that and was really, really patient, probably more patient than she should have been. But eventually it worked out. And, a decade later, here we are.
Man, you picked the right partner off the field. Sounds like you picked the right partner on the camera as well. I know I've heard the story about you and EJ kind of coming together and making a go of this. And it's been really fun to watch that product rise, because not only do you guys obviously know the game, love the game, and that comes through, but you guys are humble. There's no like hot takes. It's just kind of, people that love football enjoy spending time together talking through it. And we need more of that and less of the sensationalist crap. So kudos to you guys for all that you guys are building over there. And I gotta out us on something. So the audience doesn't know about this, but you do. So before the season, I said to you and EJ, I was like, watch out for Abe Lucas. Like this guy might be a Pro Bowler. And I don't know. I think at this point, I might end up owing you a bottle from Woodinville if he doesn't make the Pro Bowl. But, Brett, I feel pretty good. Feel pretty good paying that off because it seems like he has really stabilized the right side of that line for the Seahawks.
It's kind of amazing the difference a year makes, right?
Oh, my God.
It's not even just Abe. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all of it. Drafting Gray obviously was a big factor in the interior stabilizing as well. JSN has really grown into the role that he was probably always meant to have, and it just wasn't going to happen while DK was there. And let's be honest, DK was not a fit for Kubiak's offense anyway. So like that trade is working out wonderfully for them. And it's really allowed JSN to play this role. And like Cooper Kupp is like the vet number 3 at this point. Rashid like brings that dynamic element over the top that complements JSN. And all of these people, I mean, God, you got contribution from tight ends. Obviously, the running back room is deep. Sam is playing out of his mind. Like, we kind of, I don't want to say panicked about the Geno move a little bit, but we were
dubious.
Yeah, right. Because a lot of it wasn't even like them initiating it. From what I heard, it was more like Geno wanted out and he wanted to go play with Pete, and Sam was the pivot. Right. And then it ended up being even better. So you're like, okay, that was a little bit lucky, but everything else in terms of how this offense was constructed and how cohesive it is and how everything makes sense and the pieces all fit together so well, that was all very intentional. Even if the Sam part, I think, was kind of just blind luck, because also Minnesota didn't want him to leave either. Sam was just like, I'm not going to wait around to get replaced by JJ McCarthy. So like that, it was just a lot of fortuitous stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
But it all worked. It all worked.
I mean, they shot the moon. I mean, they absolutely did. And whether it's the Geno to Sam change, the DK to Cooper Kupp and Torrey Horton Jr., a 5th-round pick, and eventually getting Rashid Shaheed. Whether it's the tight ends, saying goodbye to Noah Fant and AJ Barner and Elijah Arroyo stepping up and Eric Saubert playing well. Whether it's not getting a veteran to your offensive line and having the 3rd youngest starting group in the NFL and having them all kind of step forward and start to be one of the better offensive lines in football. Like, there's a lot that had to go in the right direction. And so far it has been. And as we kind of turn our attention to this, like, matchup between these 2 Titans, actually the Titans game's next week, between the Rams and the Seahawks, what do you see? Like, what gets you most excited as just a football connoisseur about this matchup?
So I because I'm me, I was up to about 12:30 last night because I was watching tape on both these teams, and you had brought up a point when we had talked earlier in the week about how the Rams have really leaned into 13 personnel lately. They have 65 snaps of 13 personnel in their last 3 games, which I believe is more than every other game in the McVay era combined, off the top of my head. I think Anthony Lawson had that stat. And so part of it was like a fascination with that. And a lot of the attention that they were getting from the 13 personnel stuff was that they threw out of it. And that kind of became like the overwhelming narrative of like, they're going into heavy personnel to throw. That's true, but I feel like that's been overstated a little bit. Their run rate from 13 personnel is still 65%. So it's, when they throw, they're big game hunting. They're going down the field because they got tight ends that can leg it out and get down the field, but they're still running 65% of the time. And the reason why they went into 13 personnel is because they felt, in the absence of Puka Nacua, that was their best way to run the ball. Now, this is a team that's run the ball really well out of 11 personnel because Puka basically doubles as a fullback. He doubles as a tight end for them. And they wanted to get into those same style of runs. It's just they couldn't do it out of 11 without Puka being healthy. So like, screw it, we're going to go into 13. We're going to try to get you into base defense because we're going to run the ball well out of 13 personnel. And then we're going to throw it down the field with insert tight end here or Davante or whatever. And so that's something that I really want to emphasize is they're not doing it to throw, they're doing it to run so that they can throw. Sounds convoluted, but that's the methodology here. Now, the wrinkle, or rather the wrench, is the Seahawks play more nickel than anybody. And as far as the percentage of nickel that they play into base defense, obviously it's more than everybody. But they've only faced 13 personnel specifically 12 times this year.
Yep.
They played nickel 7 times into it. But I want to say half of those snaps against 13 personnel, they were already burying teams by like 4 touchdowns. So it's like, can you really garner anything from that when it's like, okay, yeah, they're just going to play quarters out of nickel against 13 personnel? Because what are you going to do? Run when you're down 28? No, you're going to throw. So it's tough to take anything away from that specifically. And so instead, what I opted to look into was when they're in nickel against certain receiver distributions, specifically 2x2, because the Rams love to be in 2x2. What do they play? And it's very reminiscent of a lot of modern defenses these days where they start out in 2 high, and then they're either going to stay in 2 high as quarters or quarter, half, or half, quarter, or they're going to take one of those safeties and roll them down late into cover 3. You don't really know what you're going to get, and you're not going to know until you get to post snap. So the hard part is not diagnosing it pre-snap. The hard part is reacting to it post-snap. And so that's going to be on Matthew Stafford to try to figure that out in real time. What makes it obscenely difficult against this defense is now they got Emmanwori. And buddy, it is so rare to see somebody as good as Emmanwori already is as a big nickel that allows them to do the funkiest variations of all of these very basic coverages, whether it's cover 3, quarters, 6, or 8. There was one play in particular that I saw in the wee hours of this morning. 4th quarter against Houston, 9:43 in the game. They played cover 8, so the half field safety is to the passing strength, so it's cover 2 to the passing strength, quarters away to the weak side. Emmanwori was playing a vertical hook. So he was reading number 1 through the number 2 receiver. He's taking him vertical. Very reminiscent of like what Dick LeBeau used to do with Troy back in the day. So I'm like, okay, come on. Like this kid's like 22 and you're having him do that stuff. And the safety you would expect was going to be expanding out to play a traditional deep half, but the safety was staying real tight because he's like, I'm going to take whoever is going vertical and E-Man's going to take the other one. And so Emmanwori playing a vertical hook in like his 2nd game of the year is reading 1 through 2. 2 keeps going vertical because he's reading 1 come under on the dagger, which is what Davante does all the time, which is what piqued my interest in this. And then he passes off to safety, picks him. He picks up the dagger. And I'm like, he's barely played and he's doing this and like effortlessly picking it up. And so like, this is not just 6. This is not just quarters. This is not just 3. Like they're doing the most complicated variations of this. And he's picking it up. And that I think is what makes this an incredibly intriguing game for me, is the fact that all the stuff that I've seen the Rams do out of 13 personnel to punish these teams that play quarters against it, Seattle plays a very specific brand of these coverages that is going to take that away. It's going to take away the dagger to Davante. It's going to take away all the switch verts that they do out of it off motion. And so I'm like, what's McVay going to do to counter that when he sees Nick Emmanwori out there basically wrecking shop and getting in every single throwing lane and making Stafford hold it 1 extra second against his pass rush? Like, what's going to be the counter here? Because the Seahawks defense is so talented and so rangy. Like, they don't even really have to do anything exotic from a pass rush perspective. They're doing all the exotic stuff on the back end, and their pass rush is still winning anyway. Like, I don't know how you beat that. I really don't. So I didn't get to bed till like 2 a.m. last night because I was just enjoying myself too much. But once I got to like the 3rd game of watching Macdonald's defense, I was like, good God, like I don't know the answer. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I that's one of the things I love about football in general is when you get into those moments. I used to feel that way about Tom Brady and the Patriots offense. I was like, yep, this is the LOB. They've got amazing talent, but this guy sees everything and you can't fool him. How do you, like, he takes every short pass and he converts every 3rd down. He never gets hit. How do you get this guy off the field? And I've got a treat for you. I got to show this to you, Brett. I actually just played this, but I asked Mike Macdonald about the 13 personnel yesterday. And I want you to see his grin when he gets to the end of this. And it's referencing what you just talked about. So initially I asked him about, is it harder to decode pass protections when you have the extra tight ends on the field? And he says not really, but he goes on.
Well, I wouldn't say it's much as protection, but they've been able to really manipulate front structures and coverage structures with those guys out there. So it's a credit to their tight ends. Shout out to Huff, his tight end coach. They're doing a great job with those guys. They're all playing in multiple spots, which is not easy to do, you know, when you have multiple guys on the field and they're executing at a high level. So, but they haven't had to pass it that much at a 13. So
there it is.
You see
there
that?
It is. That's
that
the one.
Good?
That's the one. He's got some shit for him. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this show, but like
you can, yeah.
But he's got, because we know Mike is a psychopath in the sense that he has charted every single snap that they've done out of 13 this year. He knows, and it's not even that they do anything complicated. Like, a lot of it is just different flavors of switch verts, right? Like they're running, you know, they're basically going to run with like an escort motion, which is all the stuff they used to do with Puka. Or they're just going to hold the snap a little bit longer, and that escort motion is going to turn into a wheel, and they're going to try to use that wheel to draw the corner so they can get number 2, which can be Davante on a safety vertical. Like, they're just doing different switch verts. Like, sometimes it's out and up. Like, it's just, we're going to get 2 guys running down the sideline and force that into a one-on-one. And Macdonald he's not dumb. He knows what they're doing. So, like, if anybody's going to test McVay on this stuff, it's going to be Mike, because he already has. It's not even about, I know what this exact call is going to be. It's just about understanding how their routes get distributed off motions. And so it's like, if we see this motion, we can say with reasonable certainty what the route distribution is going to be, what the spacing is going to be. And we just need to have guys in those spaces. So look at motion. There's your trigger. See ball, get ball. Like it's, and the way that he does install, the way that he teaches, like they're gonna be on it. They're gonna have all this stuff dialed.
We had Brian Baldinger on earlier, and we were talking about the Rams 13. We're talking a little bit about as well this kind of curiosity that Davante Adams is obviously an absolute assassin against man coverage. Like, good luck, but actually not played very well against zone this year. His efficiency drops. The other thing I noticed when I looked, he's 1 for 6 on contested catches this year, which is not something I would expect from Davante Adams. So Baldinger kind of was guessing that maybe the reason for the challenges in zone is maybe that is one of the only negatives of Matt Stafford missing training camp and like developing that trust in terms of when Davante is going to open up and when he's going to tempo through and all that kind of stuff. Any thoughts from you there? Like because the Seahawks play predominantly zone.
Yeah. And I would say attacking zone coverage, and we've seen this with Stafford and Puka over the years, attacking zone coverage is so much about just having an understanding of basically the development of space over time. Like, this is going to sound like a physics answer, but like attacking zone is really about how space changes over time, in the sense that you have to adjust depth on the fly. You have to adjust pace on the fly. If you're getting middle field open versus middle field close, your route could drastically change. Or if you're getting different kinds of middle field open, right? So if you have 2 safeties high pre-snap, if the safety closest to you is rolling down, then all of a sudden the seam behind him is going to be open, because that other safety who's trying to get to the post is not going to be able to get all the way to the other seam by the time you can get there, right? So your route will be different than if the other safety is going down and that safety closest to you is rolling down to the post. All of a sudden, if they have eyes on, they could actually get to that seam a little bit quicker. So like, sometimes you're going to adjust routes against middle field close, and sometimes you're not, depending on how they're getting into that middle field close look. And that takes time. It takes reps. Sometimes like I'll see, particularly the Rams with Puka, if they're running like snag, so like smash snag with just a corner, a flat little snag here, like depending on if they're running it to the field or if they're running it to the boundary, and then also what coverage, that's going to determine, is Puka going all the way to the sideline, or is Stafford going to throw him short and inside to save him from a hit if there's a hang corner there. And again, that takes reps and that takes time together to understand not all corner routes are the same. And he's going to put it in different spots depending on the situation. And I still think he's kind of developing that with Davante. Again, they would have done that over summer if he was healthy. He's not, so they're just kind of working on it on the fly. Right now, it feels like their best punch with Davante is just seeing man coverage and Stafford knowing, okay, depending on if I get high shoulder or low shoulder with this DB, I know where Davante is expecting the ball. I can put it there. But all the zone stuff, when he has to operate in space and try to think like how Stafford is thinking, he doesn't have that same connection yet that he had with Rodgers or Derek Carr. So they're working on that. As long as they get it ready by, I don't know, mid-February, they're probably going to be okay. But in this game, again, I still think that they're working through it.
Yeah, and so we're talking to Brett Kollmann of Bootleg Football, and we'll switch sides of the ball now. We'll talk about the Seahawks on offense, and I think one of the storyline of this game in general is, from a tactical perspective, is this personnel stuff, right? Like what the Rams are going to do with their 13 versus 11, and how the Seahawks tend to be a light box team against even heavy boxes and all that stuff. You go the other side, the Seahawks. I mean, I'll admit it, Brett. It's a little bit annoying that everyone's like fawning over 13 personnel, like Sean McVay has now invented heavy personnel groupings when the Seahawks have been running. I mean, they didn't even invent it, but the Seahawks have been running 12 or 21, 40+% of the time all year. And they're the most explosive pass team since the 2001 Greatest Show on Turf. So like, you think that would get a little bit more attention, but the Rams play a ton of dime, more than more than anybody else. And they've managed to defend the run relatively well, even when going light themselves. How do you see that chess match kind of playing out?
Is there a game this season with more star power at big nickel than this one? Because you got Emmanwori on one side and Quentin Lake on the other. And Quentin Lake's a monster.
Man, he is underrated. That guy deserves a lot more shine than he's getting.
That's why these two teams get away with it. Like, that's why. It's because they have those two. And yeah, edge is going to get the highest price tag on any given defense. And I would argue that interior defensive lineman is really what makes everything work. But if you don't have a nickel, especially a nickel with like size and range and the ability to play the run, you're dead in the water as a defense. Like, that's probably the third most important position on defense, even if it's never going to be paid the highest. These two defenses have that. They have great defensive lines and they have really, really good nickels. And I think you're seeing that reflected in the personnel groupings that they choose to operate in. I think every team in the league would do that if they could. These two teams can.
Well, when you talk about the Seahawks and you talk about offensive line, for about a decade, it has been the punchline of a joke, right? It's like, at least we're not the Seahawks offensive line, right? And all of a sudden, they add a rookie who you and I saw down there in Mobile, Alabama, just stone everybody that came his way from every position on the line. They add Clint Kubiak, John Benton, and Rick Dennison, and Justin Outen. They get Abe Lucas back healthy. And all of a sudden, they've allowed the fewest sacks in the NFL. And just last week, almost ran for 200 yards before kneel downs took them under 200 yards. Even Anthony Bradford, who has been the most recent butt of a lot of jokes, has turned in 2 solid games back to back. What do you think the Seahawks offensive line, how they're going to hold up with the way Sam Darnold's getting rid of the ball against what is as intimidating of a defensive line from a speed and just twitch perspective as you're going to find?
These are two teams that obviously rely a lot on shot plays off play action. And the benefit of play action is sometimes, like, whether you're running the ball well or not, and Seahawks fans know this, especially in the first half of this season, whether you're running the ball well or not, play action still will slow a pass rush down because they have to play the run on the way to the quarterback. And so I think we're going to see them lean into that heavily. not just to try to slow down Jared Verse a tick, but to also slow down Byron Young. My worst fear for the Seahawks offense is if we see a lot of 5-man services and they are just sending the edges after Darnold to play the boot and they don't care about the run. Because at that point, they're basically sacrificing 5-yard gains to stop you from getting the 35-yard gain. And over the course of an entire game, 4 straight quarters of that, I'm not sure if this Seahawks offense is equipped to win 5 yards at a time without the explosive play that we've become so accustomed to. So if the entire objective for Verse and Byron Young is to just completely abandon their quote unquote run responsibilities and just when they're left on the backside of a boot alone to just go after the quarterback and let everybody else handle the run, that's what I'd be worried about from a Seahawks offensive perspective, because that kind of neutralizes what they do really well. So they might have to start doing what's called locking the backside on these boot games, which is you actually leave the tackle on them on the backside of boot, which is then going to invite them to start blitzing on early downs to send linebackers and nickels through that B gap to then basically take over that role, which they're even faster, which means it's even harder for Sam to get away. And so at that point, by the time we get to the third quarter, this is my hypothesis. My hypothesis. I've kind of worked through this entire thing already. Okay, we're sending the edges off the edge first. Take away that. We're going to basically force them to adjust to that, invite the blitzes on early downs, and then you got to work the screen game. Because if you can basically do that, like kind of lean into what we think they're going to lean into to take away what, again, it's not just I'm doing this. It's I know you're doing this, and I know that I know that, it's all by the time we get to third quarter, okay, they're blitzing on early downs. Then we hit them with the screen game, and we just try to pop one to JSN that way, and we back them off of those blitzes. And then we can get into what we're actually good at. So it might be a defensive game, like 3-6 first half, while both these teams kind of reconfigure what they're actually allowed to do against each other, because both of them, I think, are equipped to stop each other.
Well, there's no doubt the main event is Mike Macdonald versus Sean McVay, but the undercard's pretty damn good between Clint Kubiak and Chris Shula, who both are probably in line for Assistant Coach of the Year honors. And I'll say this, Brett, you've got Texans Homer on your title there. I thought of that Texans game when the Seahawks played them as the closest proxy to what they might see against the Rams. You had 2 excellent edge rushers. You had, in that case, some really good corners. That was the #1 defense against play action in the NFL. And I was like, if anyone's going to slow down this Seahawks offense, that Texans defense will. Generally, that wasn't the case. Like, the Seahawks put up more points against the Texans than any other team this year. They had a field goal block. They had Cooper Kupp throw an interception near the red zone. Like, they could have easily scored 30-plus points against that team while having 4 turnovers and like doing all sorts of stupid things. So I look at this Rams team. One of the things that surprised me was they're 22nd in the NFL against defending play action. And that was not something I expected from that group. And the only teams that the Seahawks have played that are worse against play action are the Bucks and the Commanders. And there's one other team I'm spacing on, but they scored like over 30 points, 35 points against a couple of the teams. I think it was Arizona maybe, but in any event, your point about screen passes is really intriguing, because JSN, that's all he did his rookie year. And it was like, why?
Yeah.
Why? But now maybe that comes all the way back around. And the guy that he couldn't even talk about, Shane Waldron, without saying, is this live? Maybe he'll feel like, okay, Shane, you helped me out on this one.
I really do think it just comes down to you have to take your lumps to get the Rams out of what they want to do. And what they want to do is win with 4. So if you can, through scheme, make them feel like they have to blitz, not just to play the pass, but also to play the run. If you make them feel like they have to really get into the just calling fire zones over and over and over again, that's the only way you're going to open up the screen game against them. Because if they feel like they can just win with 4, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of success with screens. Like, you have to get that 5th and 6th guy into the backfield to get the space to, especially with Quentin Lake on the field. Like, you have to suck them in a little bit. So I just honestly could be very, very wrong. It's possible that maybe they do hold up against Verse and Young just fine. And at that point, okay, the world's your oyster. You can go back to doing what you normally do. But I feel like that particular edge duo, with how fast Byron Young is and how powerful Verse is, I feel like they won't just get away with it, right? Like, even though they technically did against Houston, there's something about this Rams defense that I don't feel like they're going to get away with business as usual. So they might have to switch things up, at least for the first half. What I find incredibly fascinating is both of these teams, and I saw the stat today, both of these teams have not trailed since October 12th.
Yeah.
So what happens when because I don't think either one of them is going to blow each other out. It's going to be a really close game. We haven't seen either one of them playing a close game in like a month. What happens?
Yeah.
I don't know. We haven't seen it in a long time. And that's a compliment to both teams. But like, they're so used to just rolling. Like, what happens when they get into a dogfight? Like, we might actually see something that we haven't seen in a long time this year, which is these teams play from the dirt, you know?
Yeah, it's on its face, Brett, that to me is an advantage for the Rams, right? You've got Matt Stafford, you've got that Sean McVay, that offense has been together for a little while. There's a lot of familiarity there, and there's not going to be any question in their mind or any hesitation in terms of execution in those situations. The Seahawks, as great as they've been on both sides, and Sam Darnold has many game-winning drives as Patrick Mahomes over the last couple of years, right? He's done well in those situations. But it is a young team. It's just a young team doing a lot of these things for the first time, and you give them a little bit of an edge there. At the same time, so a crazy number for you. So the Seahawks and the Rams have had the fewest plays in the NFL this year when trailing, right? So like by far the Seahawks have had the fewest plays when trailing. But when they're trailing or tied, they're the number one offense in football by a long shot in terms of EPA per play. When they're ahead, they're the 25th most efficient team offense in football because they turn the ball over like they're madmen. They're trying to give this game back like nobody's business in the second half. And so like I asked Mike about that, and you know, he didn't have a great answer, but like it's a funny thing. It's not like they've struggled when they've been behind or tied. They just haven't done it very often. So it is going to be interesting to see that. All right, last thing I got for you. I've got a take, and I need an independent perspective, and that you will absolutely fill that role. So my take is there's a lot of Seahawks fans very nervous about this game, like so much on the line. I'm not nervous about this game. I see this as there's almost nothing that could happen from either one of these teams that would lead me to feel significantly differently about them afterwards. If the Seahawks lost by 14, I don't think I would think the Seahawks have no chance to make adjustments and beat them the next time the Rams come and play them. If the Seahawks win by 14, there's no way I'm going to think, oh, thank God, Sean McVay and Matt Stafford are in the rearview mirror and the Seahawks don't have to worry about them anymore. I think these teams are probably going to play each other 3 times this season, and this is just the first. I'm curious, do you see these teams this way, or do you feel like you're going to be feeling very different about one of these teams depending on the outcome?
I want Seahawks fans to remember what they said in May. Now, I will say, as a slight aside here, a lot of Seahawks fans were very upset at the national media this year because they felt like they were being ignored and discounted and completely written off. Our show obviously was not one of the teams that did that. We were very high on Seattle coming into this year because, you know, we have eyeballs and we watch what they were last year. We're like, I don't know, they seem pretty good this year. So we were high on Seattle. Seahawks fans were obviously high on Seattle. And most Seahawks fans, the realistic ones, when the schedule came out in May, they looked at the Rams game in LA and they said, Rams are going to win that one. They looked at the Rams game in Seattle, said, we're going to win that one. We're going to split. Neither team is sweeping the other here. So what's the problem? Like we're exactly where we thought we would be, right? Which is, okay, they're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed. You split with the Rams. The Colts game is all of a sudden a little bit more precarious than we thought it was going to be. So like, if you handle business when LA comes to you and you handle business when Indy comes to you, you're going to be fine. You could still win the division, still be in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. You just got to make sure you keep pace and outpace Philadelphia. But like, I look at the rest of the schedule. Okay, Titans probably going to win that one. Vikings, I would favor Seattle. Falcons, definitely I would favor Seattle. Colts, it's called a toss-up. Second Rams game, if they lose this one, I'm giving them that one because neither team's going to sweep the other. On the road at Carolina, favoring Seattle. On the road at San Francisco, depending on if the roster is still alive in San Francisco at that point, I'd probably
might just
favor
cancel
Seattle
the game.
Might just cancel the game. But like, there's a plausible situation where like they still have the 1 seed wrapped up by the last week of the season, whether they lose this game or not. They just can't get swept, but I don't think they're going to get swept. So if they lose, it's not the end of the world. I'm a neutral party, so I can say this. I'm just looking forward to the game because I think it's going to be awesome. But if I was a Seahawks fan, I would not in the slightest think that, oh, we lost our window because we're splitting against LA instead of sweeping them. Like, they're going to be fine.
Brett, amazing to have you on. Tell folks what you've got coming up on Bootleg Football.
Ironically, there's an episode featuring Darnold that I'm working on right now. And the good folks at the NFL were helping me with this one. And it's about the quarterback development pipeline from college to the NFL, how it's completely and utterly broken because of the structures of college football, and why young quarterbacks, unfortunately, don't get the time to develop a skill set that they need to succeed in the NFL, which is under center play action. And just part of the Darnold part, to spoiler alert. If you're looking at Darnold's rookie year with the Jets, he only had 65 under center play action attempts the entire time he was a rookie with the Jets. And he had 7.3 yards per attempt on those, which sounds good, but it's actually not for under center play action. With Seattle, as of the time we're recording it, he was double that at 15.2, and he's been the best in the NFL at it. So it took Darnold a long time to get used to doing under center play action passes. Obviously looked great in Minnesota doing it. Obviously was a great fit with Clint doing it here, but he was not going to develop that in 2 years with the Jets. And so the episode's all about how young quarterbacks don't get the time to learn how to actually play in the NFL, and why we're seeing so many quarterbacks flourish in their second, third, fourth destination once they actually get time to learn that stuff. So that's coming out this weekend, I think, ish.
Awesome. Well, we will look. Is that coming out on Bootleg Football, or is it coming out on the NFL?
That'll actually be on my personal channel for that one. So,
okay,
but I'll be sending it your way once it's out.
Awesome. I will make sure to let people know about it. Brett, thank you so much for taking some time, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Brett Kollmann of Bootleg Football. Make sure you check him out in all the places. Absolute fire from Brett. Such great stuff. I find myself sometimes when we have guests as good as we had today, where I'm just like listening. I mean, I'm just an audience member because there's so much to learn, and there's people that have such great insights. And again, when you have people that love the sport that way, the way that you love the sport, it's just a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. So very, very happy to have those guys on today. What an amazing morning this has been. I kind of pinching myself. Who would have thought a year ago when we started HB Mornings that we'd be getting Brian Baldinger and Brett Kollmann on here to talk about an epic game between the Seahawks and the Rams, right? Like, I think we should all be pinching ourselves right now. It's a really fun time to be a Seahawks fan. All right, we got some more super chats. Let's get to those. K-Nix says, rain expected in LA on Sunday. Besides running the ball, how will it affect the game? Brian, thanks for all you do and share with us. Let's go Hawks. So I actually have to look this up. I thought SoFi Stadium was closed, or is it not? It is an indoor-outdoor stadium, opening on sides, operable panels to let airflow into natural light. So I don't know that rain is going to be a huge factor. But I have heard that they're expecting like kind of torrential rain, which I gotta say, come on. I mean, I'm flying down to LA. Can we just get sunshine for a couple days? Is that too much to ask? Apparently the answer is yes, it's too much to ask. So that's the only other thing is like maybe it's gonna affect people's ability to get to the game. I don't know. I mean, LA is not built for rain and definitely not built for inches of rain, which is what I'm hearing about. So we will see. Chris Van Gasteren says, excited for Sunday. Have my money on a win. Out of curiosity, is there a scenario where the Rams win 31-10? And if so, what does that mean? Thank you, Brian. I have no idea how to answer that question. Why 31-10? I mean, there's a scenario where every score is technically possible. So I don't know why that one would stick out. Sorry, I don't have a good answer for you, but appreciate you and the super chat. And appreciate everybody for giving the show a like, subscribing, and clicking that bell to get notified when we go live. I will be heading out to the VMAC here in a bit. We'll be talking to Sam Darnold as well as some other folks today. Maybe to get some more locker room sound. We will see. And then Clint Kubiak and Adden Dirty at the in the afternoon. So keep an eye out. Might have some locker room sound for you. Otherwise, everyone have a great rest of your Thursday. I'm Brian Emmanwori. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take